Okay, this video is going to be about the brain anatomy list. I'm going to show you the brain model, and I'm going to show you some sheep brain stuff, and we're going to go through this list, and I'm going to catch pretty much all the terms on here. And then if there's anything else, just catch me in class if you can't find it. I think the model that I use for just the general brain anatomy, I use the dog toy model, the squeaky one, because I think it's easier to see most of this stuff. Okay, so your brain is this big cauliflower-looking mushroom thing sitting in your skull, and it's basically the root of all of our issues. When you look at the brain, it's got all these bumps and nooks and crannies and canyons and stuff. The bumps are called gyri. All right, so all these little bumps are little gyri. All right, or singular is a gyrus. The grooves are called sulci. All right, the singular is a sulcus. If it's a really big groove, it's a fissure. Don't ask me why. Now, there's some really important sulci that you have to be able to identify. And the first one is called the central sulcus. And it's this guy that drops right down the side. And it separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. The reason I like the dog toy ones is because you can see the central sulcus really well on them. Then you have the lateral sulcus. And it's this guy right here, which separates the temporal lobe from everything upstairs. And then you've got the longitudinal fissure. Obviously you can't see it if you only have one half, so you put the two together and this groove going right down the middle is the longitudinal fissure. Now, there's a couple of gyri that you need to know, and they rest on either side of the central sulcus. The gyrus in front of the central sulcus is called the precentral gyrus. And the gyrus behind the central sulcus is called the postcentral gyrus. The precentral gyrus is also known as the primary motor cortex, and the postcentral gyrus is also known as the somatosensory cortex. You've got a map of your body on both of these little strips of brain, and if you were to pop your little skull open and start poking around in the precentral gyrus in the primary motor cortex with like an electric paperclip or something, you'd start moving around somewhere in your body. All right, so all of your voluntary motor movements start here in the primary motor cortex. If you were to pop open your brain and start poking in the postcentral gyrus with an electric paperclip or something, you'd feel something somewhere in your body. You have a map of your whole body down this strip of brain, and feeling sensation ends up right here on the postcentral gyrus. All right, the lobes, pretty easy. You've got the frontal lobe, you've got the parietal lobe, you've got the temporal lobe, and then you've got the occipital lobe in the back. We don't have white matter and gray matter on these guys. You're going to see them on the sheep brain. When you cut them open, they're real beautiful to see. I'm not going to cut one open right now, though. All right, let's look at the general parts of the brain. You've got a really good diagram in your book that you can take home and study. I'm just going to go through them pretty quick and show them to you. First, you got the cerebrum. This is this big cauliflower-looking thing up top. You've got the cerebellum in the back. The cerebrum has two cerebral hemispheres. You've got the left one here and the right one here. The corpus callosum, when you open this up and look at the mid-sagittal view, the corpus callosum is this guy right here. It's basically a big, huge set of wires that connects the right side to the left side. So it's this big piece of tissue right here. Then you have the septum pellucidum. You're not going to see it very well on these models, but it's a membrane that drops right between the two hemispheres, right under the corpus callosum. The fornix, you're going to see, it's hard to see here, but the fornix is right here. All right, the top part starts right in the middle of the corpus callosum, and it drops right down to here. Okay. Now, for the thalamus and the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, learn them in that order. You've got this little mountain here. If you look closely, there's a little mountain with a little top to it. Then you're going to see an area below the mountain, and then you're going to see this little guy dangling off the bottom. All right? The mountain is the thalamus. This little valley right here is the hypothalamus, just under the thalamus. And then the pituitary is just under the hypothalamus. The optic chiasm, you're pretty much only going to, it's hard to see unless you have two of them together. And the optic chiasm is where the two optic nerves cross over. And if I'm just going to pop this pituitary out. And if you look right here, you see this X right here. This is the optic chiasm. If we look at the mid-sagittal view, here are the two arms of the X. The mid-sagittal view is right here. This is the optic chiasm looking at it from the mid-sagittal view. Okay? Sits right below the hypothalamus. And then you've got the olfactory bulb. Pretty easy. It's cranial nerve number 1, and it's these little guys that come up from, they sit just underneath the frontal lobe. All right. The pineal gland is hard to see on these brains. It's really easy to see on the sheep brains. Now, we've got, here, let me use this one here. Here's the thalamus and the hypothalamus, and oh, here's our little pituitary. All right, awesome. So we've got our thalamus, hypothalamus, and pituitary. Now, if you look just posterior to this, to all this business going on up here, you're going to see all these little bumps here. Okay, these two bumps here are make up the inferior and the superior colliculi, which make up the corpora quadrigemina. And if you think about that word, corpora quadrigemina, it means body of 4 brothers. All right, so body of 4 brothers. I think that's what it means. So we've got 1, 2 here, and then you've got 2 on the other side. The corpora quadrigemina is really easy to see on the sheep brain. And so here's our little sheep brain, and I'm using a whole brain here so you can see all 4 of the colliculi. And I just pull, if you just pull the cerebellum down and look in the back here, you're going to see this thing here, and it looks like a butt. It looks like somebody's butt right there. Right? These two things are the superior colliculi, and just under them, these bumps here are the inferior colliculi. All of these together join forces to form the corpora quadrigemina. Just above the corpora quadrigemina, if we look even further in here, there we go. You see this little guy right here? That's the pineal gland. All right, that's the pineal gland. Okay, there you go, buddy. Now, we're going to look at all of these things and find them on the half a sheep brain. So, we've got our corpus callosum right here. All right. Now, you'll see this big round area right here. It looks like a big circle. This is the back of the brain. This is the front of the brain. This big circle right here is the thalamus. Just below the thalamus down here is the hypothalamus. And the pituitary is this guy right here. All right. So you go thalamus, hypothalamus, pituitary. Now, let's look for the superior and inferior colliculi. The superior one is right here, and the inferior one is right here. And if we kind of move it aside, here's one half of that butt right there, and then there's that, I don't know what that is. It's the inferior colliculus, my bad. Just above it, you'll see this little guy right here. This is the pineal gland. So when you learn these, think pineal, corpora quadrigemina. Okay? And the pineal sits just behind the corpus callosum. So pineal, corpora quadrigemina. All right. Here we've got the cerebellum. One of my favorite structures in the brain, because it's got such a beautiful name, is called the arbor vitae. If you look at one of these half a brains, check this out. Look how beautiful this is. This is the arbor vitae of the cerebellum, the tree of life. I think it's such an awesome name for something. All right, now let's get into the top of the spinal cord here. First, we're going to find the pons and then the medulla oblongata. On the model, pons is really easy to find. All right, it's this big guy right here. This big guy right here. All right, be able to recognize the pons on the from the mid-sagittal view, and also be able to recognize the pons from the whole brain when you're looking at it from the bottom, like this, okay? Because you should be able to do that to recognize your cranial nerves. All right, so we've got the pons. It's this big oval right here, standalone structure. This area below the pons is the medulla oblongata. And then downstairs from that is the spinal cord and the rest of your body. Okay, I think that's. I think I got them all. Okay, I think I got all the brain structures here. I made another video for the cranial nerves, and I made another video for the ventricles. So good luck.